We are in the last of the series for the legislative department. This time we discuss ancillary matters on the legislative process. For most, you have the requirements as to bills. Section 26 of Article 6 says that every bill passed by Congress shall embrace only one subject, which shall be expressed in the title thereof. So if you look at a bill, this is the proposed legislation submitted to the body for deliberations, three readings each. For the first time, it is submitted to the House of Origin. On the first reading of the three, the title and the bill number is read. In the blue font, in all capital letters, is the title of the bill. The title of the bill must indicate only one subject. Now, what's the reason for the singularity of the subject? Because if you have a bill which contains several subjects which are unrelated to each other, you may end up with the following. You may end up with what you call a hodgepodge legislation, meaning legislation that has no clear context, legislation that has no clear direction or intention or purpose, a generalized legislation that covers so many subjects, fails to fairly appraise the people. This is the second aspect. No? The third aspect of fair appraisal of the people. That's a fair appraisal of the people because when the bill eventually becomes law, it is published prior to its effectivity, as required by the Civil Code. If the subject is not clear on, if the title is not clear on the subject that it covers, it may disinform the people as to what the law is really all about. And of course, the title of the bill, since it is read in the first reading, is to prevent surprise or fraud upon the legislature, who may include, who may fail to consider that a proposed legislation, a bill, may have riders, items which are totally foreign to the subject of the bill itself. This case of Philippine Judges Association versus Prado. So, according to that same case, the title of the bill is not required to be an index of the body of the act or to be as comprehensive as to cover every single detail in the measure. While you have the title which gives us an overview of what the bill is all about, it does not require that it narrates every nitty-gritty of the bill because you'll be already reciting or mentioning the entirety of the bill, the entire bill itself. The title of the bill is the portion of first impression, both for the members of Congress who will deliberate on it and for the public eventually when it becomes law and it is published. So it only contains a generalized statement of what the bill is all about. No need to place the details. This case of Hiron versus Comelec, according to the Supreme Court, it is sufficient if the title be comprehensive enough, reasonably to include the general object which a statute seeks to effect, without expressing each and every end and means necessary or convenient for accomplishing of that object. Mere details need not be set forth. The title need not be an abstract or index of the act, similar to the case of Philippine Judges Association versus Prado. Court in Heron continues that this court has held that an act having a single general subject indicated in the title may contain any number of provisions, no matter how diverse they may be, so long as they are not inconsistent with or foreign to the general subject. So look at the title. It has a general subject. For example, the act creating the Commission on Higher Education, for example. But if you look at the law itself, there are contents therein, aside from the general impression that the commission is created, there are ancillary acts as to the power of the commission, for example, could include certain penalties for some penal provisions for some other bills. It could contain also some restrictions or ancillary powers or authorities. So as to the bills, before they become law, they pass through the president for his evaluation. President may veto a bill, as mentioned in the previous video. But remember that when the president vetoes a bill, the veto is the veto of all of the bill, or none at all. So it's all or not, none, no? Except when we call what we call an item veto, no? An item veto is when the president vetoes a particular item or items in an appropriations, revenue, or tariff bills. So it's the president can veto specific portions only of the bill, in certain instances, in appropriations, revenue, and tariff bills alone. There is such a thing we call legislative veto. It is described in Abacada versus Purisima as authority of Congress to require the president or an administrative agency to present the proposed implementing rules and regulations of law which Congress created. No, they have the power to approve or disapprove such regulations before they come into effect. So the Congress is putting a leash on a bill that it has earlier approved. This idea of a legislative veto is not actually expressly found in the Constitution, because it radically changes the design or structure of the Constitution's diagram of power. Because you have the executive department that executes, and Congress only proposes bills for the public to execute. So putting a hold on the authority of the delegated authority of to legislate by the executive department would be to shake the paradigm of the Constitution. So when do laws take effect? We know very well from our civil law and the jurisprudence in Tanyana versus Rivera that laws shall take effect after 15 days following the completion of its publication either in the Official Gazette or in a newspaper of general circulation in the Philippines, unless it is otherwise provided. So what is the unless otherwise provided here? Not the fact of publication, because publication is empirical or imperative. No? The manner, period of publication is what may be fixed by law. What about this? There is an official website for the Official Gazette. Is the Official Gazette website a substitute for the Official Gazette? Actually, in the case of Garciliano versus House of Representatives Committee, Supreme Court said that it never made the internet as a medium for publishing laws, rules, and regulations. So stick with traditional Official Gazette. So we have the matter of initiative and referendum. This is initiative and referendum is the power of the people to propose legislation, amendments to constitution, no? Also as well, revisions, no, just amendments. There are three systems of initiatives: initiative on the Constitution, initiative on statute, and initiative on local legislation. So, for example, as mentioned in the previous lectures, if Congress fails to provide a law describing what constitutional dynasty is, then the people may themselves make a proposal to define by their proposal what political dynasty is. So there are three types of initiatives: one in the Constitution, second for statutes, and the third for local legislation. You have also the category of the indirect initiative. The proposition is sent to Congress, but Congress shall be the one to propose the bill. The public only submits the proposal to Congress. What about referendum? It is the power of the public to approve or reject a legislation. So you have referendum on statutes or referendum on local laws. Okay. Remember a familiar case. This is the case of Santiago versus Comelec, because there was then in the late 90s a move to have a constitutional amendment by a group. No, the law here applicable was RA 67735 on initiative and referendum. The problem is, according to Miriam Santiago, the law is incomplete because while the petitioners, sorry, the respondents wanted to make amendments to the constitution by way of initiative. Sadly, the law is insufficient. No, the system of initiative under existing law 6735 until now is uncorrected. It only refers to initiative um, uh, on the ano on the local legislation or statute, but not for the constitution. No, RA 6735 is incomplete, inadequate, or wanting in the essential terms and conditions insofar as initiative on amendments to the constitution is concerned. Okay.